Moms on a Mission podcast. You are in for a treat today. Our guest today, she grew up in Mao's China during the Cultural Revolution, and she escaped to the United States thinking that she was escaping to freedom, only to find, sadly, remarkable similarities between the two countries. And we're having our own cultural revolution ourselves here in America. And she joins us today to point out those similarities. But I have to tell you, she's not just talking, she is full of action. She's actually run for Congress in her state of New Hampshire. She has been on the Tucker Carlson show. Sean Ryan has interviewed her, Fox News. She is now a national icon, and she's speaking out to these Marxist communist strategies that have really been plaguing our nation for a long, long time. And she is really an example who we can follow. She's acting and speaking out, and she joins us today to encourage us to do the same. Welcome to the Moms on a Mission podcast, Lily Tang Williams. Thank you for joining me today.
Well, thank you for having me here.
So for those of you listening, so Lily is joining us today, not in person, but she is in my home state of Oklahoma. She's probably about 30 minutes away from where we're recording right now. And she's joining us today. Tonight, she's going to be speaking with Moms for Liberty. Representative Gabe Woolley brought her here to the state of Oklahoma. We're not going to be able to meet at Evergreen Baptist Church. We're going to be, because of the snow that we welcomed her with, we're going to be joining at a restaurant to be disclosed later. But she's also going to be going to Oklahoma City to meet with our state superintendent of public schools, Superintendent Ryan Walters, as well. And so we're incredibly honored to have you in our state, Lily, teaching us, educating us, and showing us ways that we can expose and fight this Marxism and communism in our state. So I'd love to have you, just maybe for those who don't know you, I know you've been nationally known here for quite a while, but I would love for you, those who might not know you, for you to tell us a little bit about what it was like to grow up in Mao's China during the Cultural Revolution.
Yes, I was born in actually southwest of China, Sichuan province, next to Tibet. My hometown, Chengdu, is the capital city of Sichuan province. Fun-loving people, big mountains, and spicy food. And but I did not know as a child, I was born into a communism. My parents worked 6 days a week for state factory jobs. Everybody had to work. And people might think, oh, then everybody had to work, had a guaranteed job. It's a good thing, right? As like Bernie Sanders said, everybody has a guaranteed job, but even though those jobs are not productive, the mothers had no choice but to work. And we all had to go to, like a Chinese Communist Party factory daycare centers and the government schools, indoctrination, and also live on food rationing. It's like a poverty and a very primitive living conditions. 8 families share one bathroom, 8 families.
Wow.
And
Wow.
one water faucet. Sometimes the water ran out, and so my dad had to build something to store water. So that kind of primitive living conditions, and I just don't understand our young people in this country sometimes call themselves self-claimed communists. It's like, do you know what's it like to live in communist country? And so I think that those young people are poorly educated in this country, and the more immigrants like me come out to tell our stories, the better it is for our country. But too bad that our educational system has not, really been able to properly educate the youth in this country.
Well, you bring up a great point, Lily, and that is the education. And that is one, I don't know if you're familiar with this the book, The Naked Communist, but this gentleman, the author, W. Cleon Skousen, he talks about, this was entered actually into the congressional record January 10th of 1963. I'm sure you've heard of this, but these are the communist goals. And one of the goals in here was to take over education and to teach the kids about communism in a good way, and not to teach the negative aspects of communism, to get the kids to reject the teaching of their parents, and to look at education and their traditions of men as old. And I know that in the Cultural Revolution they had these things called the Four Olds, and I would love for you to touch on that briefly, because we're seeing some of those Four Olds being implemented in America today in the name of progressivism, and like it's a good thing.
Well, that progressives call themselves progressive or leftists or liberals, whatever, but they have not personally lived like I did. So they might not recognize the evils of ideology, what they're advocating for in this country, which it does not end well at all for everybody, including themselves, will be thrown under the bus. I mean, just like, Karl Marx made that very clear in his book, Communist Manifesto. Lots of young people worship that book and read that book. You can read it. It's online. I mean, it is one of the 10 goals of communism, and is a free education for all the youth, but in government-controlled schools. Because even Chairman Mao understands that very well. If you can, draw, if you can control the education, because the young people's mind is a white piece of paper, you can draw. He called the most beautiful pictures on it. That means if you give your child, like Lenin said, for 8 years, he will be Bolshevik forever. That kind of indoctrination is really difficult to change. That's why there are so many Chinese people who never left China. They still believe those lies that the Communist Party told them for years. They don't know the truth about Mao's mass famine, where 40 million people starving to death. They don't understand the truth about Cultural Revolution. 20 million people got murdered. And so because they never came out like I did to be exposed to truth. I cried when I found out how many people died after his mass famine. I thought, oh, it was 3 years natural disasters. That's what the party told us. My parents were in their 70s. When I told them the truth in this country, they were speechless. It's like your whole life is a lie by your government. And so it is so critical for us to actually exercise parental control in education. And so our kids know the history and know the evil ideologies exist in this world, and they want to destroy individual rights, liberty, and the parental rights. And we need to be very active in our local communities, in our kids' education.
Yeah, I mean, what you're speaking to is a biblical principle in Proverbs 22:6. It says, train up a child in the way he should go, and when he's old, he will not depart from it. And even the Greeks reference this. They talk about the children's mind, about how pliable it is. So, I mean, make no mistake. I mean, obviously, Mao is very smart in this way, and he knew exactly what he was doing. And I think the key is obviously to capture the kids, get them into a setting where they're brainwashed, but then you also have to destroy the old, so that there's no attachment to tradition, to the truths that have been passed down from generation to generation. And I remember learning about the Four Olds that were destroyed, and some was social, but then like the statues and the pictures, and I think I heard you talk about how they would actually, the Red Guard would come in the homes and take property and destroy photos and books and things of that nature.
Correct. And Mao just used the destruction of four old, which is Chinese culture, customs, ideas, and habits in order to achieve total his godlike leader status. He used young people, naive, idealistic, and worship him to do those destructions. And the Red Guards, did not have to go to schools, and they would hit the drums and looting and homes and to search for the fallout. And before they come, my grandma told me they would have to hide all the old stuff or burn them or get rid of them. And like they even include some of those Chinese traditional beautiful silk dresses. And I had one old stuff from my grandma I brought to this country was one old vase from my real grandfather in China. That was the only thing left after the Red Guard destroyed everything, including his anything made from iron. They also were confiscated and contribute to the great steel production campaign under Mao. And so we get one piece of new clothes for Chinese New Year. Other times, my grandma could not make any more new clothes. We get the fabrics. We have to get somebody to make clothes for us. That was our Chinese New Year gift once a year, because everything else is destroyed and we were living in poverty. Most people just live in under poverty and live on food rationing and primitive conditions. And but we're supposed to sing kumbaya, like long live Chairman Mao, long live Communist Party, and the black families are our enemies and they need to be destroyed. That's how I was brainwashed from young pioneer to Red Guard, and until Mao died, I was 12. That's when I totally wake up to say, oh, somebody lied to me. He was
Yeah.
not died.
Surprise, Lily.
Right, yes.
So as a Red Guard, I've read in history that they did go in and they actually I believe the first murder in the Cultural Revolution was in a middle school by girls with the middle school principal. And I just was wondering what you had to do as a Red Guard if you had to go into homes. I know you were 12, so you probably were the younger Red Guard. So maybe you were just going to meetings and being indoctrinated and didn't actually have to go in and do things like that.
Well, I become Red Guard even after Mao's death. So all that violence and struggle sessions kind of ended after Mao's death, but we were still encouraged to join his organization called the Red Guard because Cultural Revolution basically continued and after all the violence ended. So my memory started, with struggling sessions in the public square by my grandma's house in Chengdu, and saw Red Guards, in the military trucks and going to Beijing to be interviewed by Mao. They were so excited and singing songs. And the one guy in the neighborhood, years later in this country, I found out he killed himself because he could not handle the pressure of struggling sessions. And he was one of the black families. Because as a child, I saw his body naked in the community water well, like very deep. And I just blocked the memory, run away. Maybe I was 4 years old or something. Then in this country, I asked my uncle years later, like 2021, it's like, who is that guy, uncle? He told me he was black family and killed himself. We had to, no water supply for a couple of weeks to disinfect it. And that's what happened. They turned the black families and children against the family, just like some movies to show you, if you are categorized as black family, then the children are under tremendous pressure to cut family ties, to say, I'm going to change my last name, let's say from Tang to Wang, and I denounce my grandparents, my parents, and their black class families, categories. I want to be red. I want to be mouse, Red Guard, a young pioneer. So sometimes by killing themselves as a black, let's say, as dad who was born landlord, by killing himself, he might try to save his family so they can have an easier time to be categorized as a red class. If you are red class, you are good, you go to school, you become mouse, Red Guard, then you get a promotion and get even more, opportunities. So that's how he did it, is, by divide and conquer and get all the Chinese who have same skin color, who speak same languages, but to fight each other. It's a traditional Marxist class struggle. And that's why today, when we talk about people are divided by race, by gender, by different things, It is called a cultural Marxism. It's not the economical class. But when you think about it, they want to overthrow, communists still want to overthrow capitalism. So back to traditional class struggles, they just use skin color, gender, and kids to do the revolutions for them and to vote for more socialist policies. Even I don't think some Democrats even don't get it. Like their
No.
policies are very similar to what we survived.
Well, and they just flat out lie. I mean, as you were lied to your whole life about Mao being a god. I mean, this is all lies. And when they talk about the government, how the government's going to take care of you, whether it's through medical care, or we saw that with COVID, and they mailed out all these stimulus checks, and people were thrilled to get quote unquote free money from the government, and they could just stay home. I mean, can you talk about how Mao lied, and he talked about how he was going to strip the land from the wealthy black class, the bad people, because they were landowners, they had some money because of their hard work, and how he said he was going to take that from them and give it to the peasants. But then tell us what happened after the peasants had that land for a little bit. They didn't get to keep it.
No, that's how they lure you into communism by offering free stuff. That's why when our U.S. government talk about free stuff, I'm very, very critical. I don't trust that. So Mao said, "Hey, if we do our communist revolution and take the land, the peasants supported him." And he got the peasants also are very, very jealous of landowners and rich people, and profits are evil. And they want equities, like what they're talking about today, equity, right? What happens that Mao confiscated all the lands from landlords and killed 2 million landlords in the country during the land reform in New China, People's Republic of China. But then shortly after that, he did not actually give land to the peasants. He turned them into people's communes to say, you know what, we need to have people's communes to fulfill real communism, which is utopian society. You can all work together, eat together, and take what you need. And so peasants did not really own that land. And instead, that Mao then told them how to also grow food, and that caused 3 years of mass famine from 1958 to 61. Estimated like 40 to 60 million peasants starving to death. They
Wow.
supported communism,
Right.
but then they were starving to death
Because
by the evil ideology they supported by this
yeah,
cold leader.
they enacted it for him. So essentially he lied to them. They delivered for him. And then he starved him to death. Essentially, that's what happened.
That's why I was so worried when I went to South Africa. South Africa, 2018, they were even today. There's those socialist people talk about same thing. We're going to take the land from the white people and give to all the people. No, it's all about power struggle. And guess what happened in China? Even today, the land and still does not belong to the people. You can buy your condo today in China. You buy a structure above the land. The land, according to China's constitution, belongs to the people. But who are the
Wow.
people? It is the state. It is a government. It is a local government who can even transfer the land use right to private developers and make tons of money for the government or officials. But then they look at today now, and that kind of revenue dries up, and then local cities, the government actually are suffering because the real
Wow.
estate market in China kind of collapsed because of the COVID lockdowns.
Yeah. I didn't realize that they didn't own their own land. I knew that the structures, but that is so fascinating, Lily, that even today, they don't own their own land. And I think that that is so scary that it's still continuing. Talk to us a little bit about, so you grew up, Mao died when you said you were 12, but then I think it's really cool that you have a legal background. You went to law school, whatever that looks like in China, but how did you get to America exactly? And what drove you? I mean, obviously, folks don't want to live like that in China, but what drove you to take the brave step to come here and talk about what that was like, how you could even get out of China?
When Mao died, the universities were opened like in 1977. So I was told by my parents, in order for me to get out of poverty, because my parents were very poor workers in Chengdu, and I had to get the best education. So my dream was to, go to the best university. My teacher told me that if our country is ruled by man, not a rule of law. He went to labor camps after 50s, graduated from college, because he dared to give CCP some feedback. They were asking for feedback from the intellectuals and college graduates, and they gave true feedback. They were sent to labor camps. So his health was totally ruined. When I visited him as a 16 years old high school student, he told me that our country ruled by men. And that
Mm.
just hit me. I said, I want to go to law school then. I want to build my country based on rule of law, which is equal protection and justice. And so I took 2 years to study very hard. My parents were not able to help me, but I had some brain and the memory. So I studied very hard to go to the best top 5 Chinese university to study law at the age of 17 in Shanghai. And
Wow.
in law school, my life was changed forever. When I was a junior student, American exchange student I met and who told me about America, about the founding fathers document, the Declaration of Independence, about the individual rights and liberty. My light bulb turned on and just never turned off. And that was the first time I heard that concept, individual rights and liberty, and come from our creator, from God, not from any government. It doesn't matter my skin color, my nationality, my gender. And so I just thought this country was very cool. And if someday I had to leave China for freedom, this is the country I would come. So after I become a faculty member of law school, I got my degree. I worked in same law school, and I realized I could not be free. I could not transform China. I could not be happy. So I took me 2 years to carefully manage to kind of escape by going through graduate school application in this country, got accepted, found an American sponsor, and with my Communist Party boss permission and sign a piece of paper to promise return to China after my graduate degree, then I finally got my passport, got my visa, and come to this country in 1988. So that was 36 years ago.
And was your heart just pounding when you were essentially lying to them in the best possible way to tell them? I mean, you had to tell them what they wanted to hear, because if you were like, no, I'm leaving this communist country and I'm never returning, obviously they wouldn't let you go. I mean, I can't even imagine the pressure and just getting on that plane and like wanting everything to work out so perfectly so you could escape essentially. That must have been scary a little bit.
That was my nightmare for 10 years after I come to this country. I literally would dream about
Ugh.
it. I was trapped. I was stuck. I could not get out no matter what happened, like a miss a boat or dig a hole in the ground to
Oh.
swim into Pacific Ocean, come to America. And that's how I remember, it's like how desperate I was, how alone
Mm,
I was. I could not
yeah.
tell anybody my truth.
No.
Because if you told the truth, you will not allowed to leave. You have to get your boss permission to quit your job and to go apply for private passport, then to go get a visa. It was long planning carefully to escape. But even though yeah, I did not flee like in my sandals, but I feel like I was
Mhm.
trying to manage my own escape, and I
Yeah.
will never go back. And the people don't understand in this country. It's like, oh, you came here to go to graduate school. You did not flee. It's like, well, I feel
Oh
like
my
I had to.
gosh.
Yeah,
Yes, because you had to
yeah.
lie, and isn't that so, it's just daunting to me when I think about it, that that one person had the power to say yes or no, and that one person could have said no, and your whole life's trajectory would be massively different today.
Right, but that whole person represent a machine, a regime which is controlled by Communist Party of China, CCP, and they control everything. And people
Wow.
don't understand all the leaders today in China are not elected, they're appointed. And that's why people, regular people, have no voice and they have no free speech. And then, they allow you to have private companies and the private properties now. Like I said, the structure you buy above the land, but still you are trapped and you have no grievance. There's no rule of law. You can get locked up if you post something on social media anti-government. And it's a totalitarian country. That's why the foreign companies, investors, I've been warning them
Yeah.
that, under Xi Jinping, this new, chairman of the CCP, China is going backwards. Some foreign companies now, they cannot get their money out of Chinese banks. And they
Wow.
invested, they earn that profit. And so I said you can never trust the regime, the system. And look at what happened to Hong Kong. Like the
Yeah.
one country, two system, they promised never were kept. And young people today are very, very frustrated and depressed in China. There is a movement called laying flat. That means they have no purpose in life. They don't want to get into rat race and they don't know what the future holds for them. So they just want to stay home, lay flat, play video games. And now they kind of control you how many hours video game you can play. So there's a government in your
Wow.
life every day.
Wow. Well, what was that like, Lily, when you came here? You didn't know the language. I cannot even imagine being in your shoes going to China or going to another country if it were free and fleeing and not knowing anyone, not knowing the language. I just think that would be super daunting. How long did it take you before you noticed, oh my goodness, this country is looking very similar to the communist one I just fled, number one. And then number two, what was that you noticed? Was there anything in particular, or was it just a gradual awakening for you to see these similarities?
It was a very long awakening process. I mean, no matter what, I did not have ideology when I first came here. I did not know English well. I only had $100. I went to graduate school. Basically, I was so fortunate to get my research assistantship in graduate school the first night I come to this country, and I met my future husband the first night come to this
Oh
country.
my gosh. Wow. That's destiny right there.
So I had to learn English, and I had to pay bills, save money to pay back all the debts I own to my American sponsor. And, after 2 years, I met my husband. We got married. We both got our graduate degree, and we started a family and started working. And, I was not political at all. I had to wait for 5 years after the green card to become U.S. citizen. And I will say 20 years later, 2008, which is 20 years later, I come to this country. I started to wake up to my
Mm.
English got better. I got laid off by a company, so I had a lot more time to stay home with my kids, got involved with local charter school board, and I served on HOA board. I had to learn as an American citizen about the basics and the civics, how I can involve in our self-governance from the grassroots level. How can I voice myself? How can I express myself? I really wanted to take my citizenship to a new level where I really feel like I am an American citizen. I don't take that right for granted. I voted. If I want to vote, right, I have to go to research who I should vote for. So I think that under Obama, he really woke me up. It's like, how come he talk like a communist?
Oh, I bet. Yeah,
And
you recognize some maybe terminologies and some of the things he was saying, and that he was saying how he wanted to really rewrite the history for America. He's wanting to change us, and he was not quiet about that.
now he said he wanted to fundamentally transform America, and he offered the state money to implement the Common Core, and race to the top. And so as a mom with 3 young kids, I did not like that. I got activated. And as an individual citizen, I put all my kids into charter school. And he also said, you did not build that. And our country was more divided based on skin color because, I thought after he become president, our country would be more unified. And first time we had a half black president, and
Yeah.
I thought that was a turning point. No,
Yes.
actually, the country become more divided. But that's what they wanted. It is
Yeah.
their strategy to continue to divide people based on skin color. I thought I studied the civil rights and I love what Dr. King said, that we should be judged based on our individual character and meritocracy, not the skin color. But I thought he was just going backwards. So I got activated under him, and I got involved in my local community. So now I will say I'm a engaged citizen for over 10 years. I have
Wow.
never disappeared. I have never been silenced. Even though the Chinese Communist Party discovered me, they want to silence me. They threaten.
I wanted to ask you about that. I'm so glad you touched on that. I hoped it was okay to talk about that.
Sure.
So now that, all these years later, you've been here, but what have they tried to harm you in any way or silence you from afar?
Well, because I am on the speaker bureau of victim of communism memorial foundation, so people can invite me to go to schools and colleges to educate our students and to speak to nonprofit organizations. And they somehow discover me on Facebook, so they threatened me 2019, I was getting ready to go to China to see my family, and they told me that you are wanted criminals. Shut up and don't badmouth your motherland. And when I become congressional candidate in 2022 in New Hampshire, and then they gave me a death threat on X, on Twitter. And
Oh my
so
gosh.
basically, I have not seen my family in China for 9 years. I'm afraid to go back, and they're gonna make me disappear. But I will not be silenced. I basically ban them. I take a screenshot, and one guy actually showed up in near Salt Lake City when I gave a keynote speech in one of the
Oh,
Republican Lincoln dinners. And when Chinese man showed up, there was Confucius Institute in Salt Lake City. So I saw the sign. And when Chinese man showed up, paid $75, come to my Lincoln address and videotape my whole talk and tell people at the table that don't believe Lily. Our Chinese leaders are like our, families, our fathers, and, they're not dictators. So sounds like he worked for CCP.
yeah, right. And at
Yeah.
some level. Well, I wanted to show a video clip because I remember when I first saw this, and it kind of makes me think like you kind of fell into this advocacy, like you're almost like an accidental advocate. And I remember hearing that it wasn't even your intention necessarily to create a ruckus like you did nationally and maybe even internationally, but you asked David Hogg a question who is really anti-guns, let's just be honest, and wants to restrict our Second Amendment's right. And I wanted to show that clip real briefly and then have you comment on that on the other side.
My name is Lily Tang Williams, and welcome to my Live Free or Die state. Actually, I am a Chinese immigrant who survived communism. And under Mao, 40 million people were starving to death after he sold communism to them, and 20 million people died, murdered during his Cultural Revolution. So my question to you, David, is that can you guarantee me, a gun owner tonight, our government in the U.S., in D.C., will never
become a tyrannical government. Can you guarantee that to me?
There's no way I can ever guarantee that any government will not be tyrannical.
Well, then the debate on gun control is over because I will never give up my guns. Never, never. And you should go to China to see how gun control works for dictatorship of CCP.
That was at Dartmouth College last April, April 10th. And I just have to say, Lily, that was short, but that was like a punch to the throat with truth. Because what, like you said earlier, these kids have no idea, yes, it's like these guns just hop out of these cases and go kill people. And it's not the guns, it's the people. And so I just thought, what led you to be so bold and so brave to say that to him?
Well, my first testimony in this country as a citizen is the state capital of Colorado in 2013. They wanted to have lots of gun control bills passed. So I went there to testify. It got me activated. My first op-ed published is also called Guns Against Tyranny. So I came to a free country. I don't want any tyrannical government. So when they talk about gun control, they always talk about, oh, we just don't want criminals go kill people. But how about the tyrannical government kill people? Millions and millions died, under communism. I don't want that happen to this country. So he gave me honest answer, like I cannot guarantee that. And then he laughed at my, statement. He is a typical young generation who were indoctrinated to believe in government. But what is government anyway? It's just a whole bunch of people, right? Bureaucrats, politicians. They are not angels. What if they're power hungry? They want to control you. They want to track you. They want to take away your individual rights and liberty. But David does not understand that. Waste all their money in education at the Harvard School. That tells you something terribly wrong with this country. And so that became viral. I was just attending a debate, watch my friend and Spike Cohen debate David Hawk. Well, gave him credit. David Hawk showed up and gave me honest answer. And I even shook hands with him afterwards to say, David, and you're young. I'm sorry what happened to you. I mean, he went through the school shooting. But I said, Google Mouse Culture Revolution and Google Red Guards. I don't want you to become one of the Red Guards. Their fate did not end very well. He looked at me kind of puzzled. It's like the first time he ever heard about Red Guards. And I'm hoping that I plant some seeds in his head. Maybe he will do some research someday and he will get it. I just heard today he's running for vice chair for DNC. It's like,
oh my goodness.
I know. It's like, he called himself progressive. He wants the old people stand aside, the young people take over. Young progressives who are indoctrinated to be leftist and to believe in government. How dangerous it is to our liberties, to in this country. I don't want that. And help people understand, where he stands on those issues.
And he's a prime example of what Skousen was talking about in those communist goals to subvert America way back in 1963. 58 is when he wrote The Naked Communist. So this has been going on a long time. And David Hogg is a prime example and the fruit of all the work that has been implemented to take the Bible out of schools, to take prayer out of schools. I mean, this has been a plan, and it's been methodically and quietly implemented and patiently, mind you, for years. And now they can look at David Hogg and say, yes, that was the whole entire goal of all of this. And look what we've done with our indoctrination. But they had to get the Bible out. They had to get prayer out. They had to get the kids into these government schools away from the church and the homeschool education that our country had at its founding. And so that's why, Lily, I am so grateful for you, because I just see this pattern of folks who've escaped communism are coming here, like Yeonmi Park, like when she wrote her book, While Time Remains. I mean, she's saying the same thing from North Korea. She's saying the same exact thing. And it seems like we're having to rely on you all to take a stand and call out what you see. And that is the stark similarities in America to these Marxist and communist countries that you grew up under.
We need more of us. We need more of us to go on podcasts, go on national big shows to tell our stories, because lots of people in this country, include even some more senior people, they never lived it, and they thought they were just supporting a Democrat Party, their policies, and take care of the oppressed people, poor people. But they don't see the similarities, the policies, the tactics, even the terms they use are very similar what we saw before in a totalitarian country. That's why the legal immigrants will come here, embrace American values, and we do not agree with Democrat policies. And the Democrats like to have illegals come in because they're probably gonna hope they vote for them and give them a pass, to citizenship, and so there will be Democrats voters forever. We
Yeah.
reject those kind of policies.
And what
America is a great country. Just we have lots of opportunities for people like me. If I can come here, and with
Yes.
$100 broken, English, and start with nothing. And today I'm traveling around with financial freedom to speak my mind and to even run for Congress. Where else can you achieve that?
Yeah, nowhere. And that's why people come here. That's why folks are pouring through our southern border illegally. Because if we were such a bad country, if we were systemically racist, if we were so oppressive, why would all these people be flooding in our southern border? Let's be honest. It's because we're the land of the free and the home of the brave. And I'm so grateful for your voice, your bravery, coming to Oklahoma in the snow today. And I can't wait to see you tonight, Lily. Tell folks how they can find you, support you, and follow you.
Well, I'm the most active on X, former Twitter, and I have 230,000 followers right now.
Oh
And
my gosh.
I post something almost every day. I even tell people I'm here, I'm speaking around, and I want to connect with everybody. I also have a website, lilytangwilliams.com. I have a YouTube channel with my own name, and I have short videos. I have even cooking show and travel videos, and I just love American people and I love our country. I will do whatever I can to make an impact and to educate and to wake up the people who might not know the horrors of communism. When Berlin Wall fell down in the 90s, people thought, oh, communism is dead. No, the specter of communism is going around in the world. People might not call that communism, they might call something else. So we need to be aware the similar terms and tactics and strategies, ideologies, and they are dangerous to our individual rights and freedom, which is American founded on. And we need to become a very engaged, very informed citizen and to keep that way.
Yes, ma'am. And Abraham Lincoln did say that we would be destroyed from within. It wouldn't necessarily be a foreign invader. And your activism and your involvement locally. I mean, General Flynn says local action makes a national impact, and you have led by example, not just your words, but oh my goodness, you ran for Congress. I mean, that is huge. And in a country where you had to learn their language. I think you're absolutely amazing. And I just want to say thank you for coming to our state today. Thank you for your voice, and thank you for teaching us how to stand up for freedom. God bless you.
God bless you. Thank you for having me.
I hope we can all take what she said to heart and not just become activated by attending school board meetings and speaking out, but also creating protection and freedom in our own home financially. And, we didn't get into a lot of this, but digital ID and digital currency and digital control of money is a thing in China. And as we're seeing more and more of that happen in the United States, what we can do to protect our family, to protect our children, and to create a legacy financially for them is to purchase gold and silver. I just had someone convert their IRA to gold and silver a few days ago. And the great thing is that's money that you already have invested and you don't even get taxed on it. You can just roll it over to hard gold and silver backed IRA. It can be in a vault of your designation, and there's no tax, there's no fee of any kind. You can cash it out and get the gold and silver on you and have it. Of course, there is some taxation, and there is a penalty fee. But I encourage you to just roll it over and to have it be gold and silver backed. At the very minimum, do that. And then also what I do is I purchase gold and silver every 2 weeks. It's not a lot. Silver's like $28 to $30 an ounce. Gold is about 2,700, 2,800. It kind of fluctuates in there. That's maybe a little bit harder to do, but silver, we can all get a couple of ounces and start doing that today. Hedge against inflation and get some money in your bank, because all they have to do is create this digital ID. In fact, now money in the bank, I don't know if you knew this, but the money in the bank, there's a Dodd-Frank Act that passed in 2012, and it's legally not your money. I mean, that's what the law says. And, the mainstream media doesn't talk about that because they don't really want to accentuate that. But if you buy gold and silver, you start getting hard assets on you or in a vault somewhere. The government can't touch that. So call the number on the screen, email me at moms@momsonamission.net. Email me and let's have a conversation and start talking about this today. That's free. There's no commitment there in a conversation, or just call that number if you're ready to have a conversation and talk about it live and purchase some gold and silver today. Thank you so much for listening.